Ever wondered how trailblazing risk leaders navigate uncertainty with finesse and confidence? Uncover the surprising connections between their personal journey and professional prowess, and get ready to learn and elevate your risk management game with the RiskMasters podcast. Join host Julian Hay in collaboration with Risk.net as they delve into hidden gems of risk leadership through engaging conversations and thought-provoking insights from board directors to chief risk officers and business leaders.
Bonjour and welcome to the latest episode of RiskMasters with Marie Lauri, Deputy Chief Data Officer and Head of Data Risks and Controls at Deutsche Bank. Marie brings a wealth of expertise in data governance, audit and risk management, with a career spanning over 14 years at Deutsche Bank and a passion for driving innovation while maintaining robust risk frameworks. In today's episode, Marie shares her journey from a PhD in microfinance to leading transformative data initiatives in one of the world's largest financial institutions. She provides deep insights into balancing innovation with regulatory compliance, fostering a culture of data literacy, and navigating the complexities of data governance. In this episode, you will learn more about 1. How to establish strategic data governance and scaling complex frameworks, 2. Embedding innovation through strong controls and automation, and 3. Fostering leadership and diversity in risk management. You can find more information on my website avitium.com, including the recap article and show notes from today's episode, along with additional thought leadership articles on risk compliance and data management. Now more about Marie. Marie is a seasoned leader with extensive expertise in audit, risk management, and data governance. As a board advisor to AI fintech Synthesize, and a strong advocate for gender equality, she actively contributes to the industry forums and leadership networks. And now, without further ado, I give you Marie Lauri. Welcome to this new episode of RiskMasters. Today it's my pleasure to welcome Marie Lauri, Deputy Chief Data Officer and Head of Data Risk and Controls at Deutsche Bank. Marie, would you like to introduce yourself and give us perhaps an unusual fact about yourself?
Sure. So you will hear from my accent, I'm French, like Julian. I've been in London for 18 years, and unusual thing about myself, as Julian explained, I'm now at Deutsche Bank, but my passion for finance actually started doing microfinance development projects when I was younger and actually did a PhD in microfinance. So it's a bit of a stretch from the back of a loan shark in the Philippines or Senegalese women, helping them with their projects to Deutsche Bank. But I'm glad they started me in that direction.
Well, we would not have met otherwise, so at least it led us here today. And I think some of the work you've done helping especially other women is something that has marked also your career. We're probably going to come back to that a little bit later in our discussion. Now, my next question for you, right, and I think you started actually touching down on that, but how did you get to where you are today? Because you actually started in a completely different path and now working in a data space. And when we met, actually, you were in audit. So can you just walk us through how you get there?
Surely. So a bit by luck, I must say. It started with a headhunter saying to me, okay, how about an audit job? And I said, well, I have not been trained as an auditor. How could I actually ever be an auditor? And actually what they were looking for is quants, PhD that had a quant background to audit models at Barclays at the time. And I joined audit, and it was actually a fantastic start of the career because it gave me the helicopter view of all of the processes in the bank. I started in risk audit, so models and risk. Started with the ICAP process, which was around all of the risk management framework of the bank. And I think it was a fantastic start of the career because it gave me really this sound understanding of risks and control and governance and how to design a process well, how to identify vulnerability, how to actually design remediation framework, which was invaluable for future roles.
And I think I had the privilege to be audited by you, actually, when I started at Barclays 16 years ago. So here we go. That's how we ended up.
Was it the Pillar 3? Yes, yeah. You might have been the Pillar 3.
Probably. Just looking a little bit more at your personal life, what's your morning routine? How do you work in the morning with such a busy life? And I think you have also a family as well. So.
Yeah, so I don't work in the morning. I train in the morning, so I wake up at 5:45. And what I like doing is I check emails, I read the FT a bit, And then we have a gym in the house, so I do cross-trainer for about 45 minutes, watching my preferred TV show of the moment. And then I get ready, have a little coffee with my husband and daughter, and off to work or remote work at 8.
You're more structured than I am, I think. And in your career, what is the hardest challenge you had to overcome, and how did you bounce back from it?
I'm kind of hardwired positive, so I tend to ignore challenges or forget them. But if I really had to pick one, I would probably speak about my transition from audit to the data space. You could say I had it all in audit. I had a really fast growing career. When I left, I was at the Exco for a few years, having built a really strong risk practice, having driven a lot of change program for both the organization, run agile, completely revamped the findings management, which had an impact on the bank. But I felt I was probably not learning as much and really wanted to actually explore not only advising others what they could do better, but actually driving the change myself. It actually took me about 2 years to land a role, and what I really wanted was to have a role in the first line, and probably a hard choice, but in the technology division, because I had never really been exposed to it, and technology for me was the backbone of the bank, a really complex area, and I really had to break it open and understand it. So after a few rounds of searching for this role, I actually was offered the role of records management and data disposal from our board member at the time, who was really upset that he had been trying to do bonfires on a lot of records for many years but could not get through it, because actually you have to be really structured from a risk standpoint before you can actually delete anything. And he was really looking for someone with this risk background and connection, and to be able to structure it in the right way. I must say, after audit, you've got to make this up, records management now. This is quite dry, and actually I did not know about records management as well. But I decided to have a go at it. I could see how excited my board member was around the potential cost save of this data disposal program. And also, actually, I was told that, if I managed to design this well, there was also a run the bank team of about 200 people that I could lead. And so far I had led only teams of up to 60 people. So I thought, okay, maybe that's also a nice thing. And there would also be technology teams below me. So I had to go. It was hard joining this management team. I had not realized how privileged I was with my audit exco team. We were working actually quite well together, and having really topics we were jointly working together. The technology team I joined was not working as well together. They were all on their own portfolio and trying to maybe not be so supportive of each other, let's say. And then actually after only 2 months, the board member changed. My boss changed as well, and the new boss that came from the outside decided to formalize the role, but actually formalize the role on the program and only the records management piece, which was a team of 12 people. So by that time as well, I had realized that the stakeholders on the data disposal program were quite challenging, not really collaborative, and it was overall hard work. And it was a blow, to be honest. That's not what I came for, and I felt I should have the bigger role. So I seriously sounded myself at the time, should I go back to audit? Surely I can't. I really wanted to leave audit, so I've got to stick with this. And that's what I did. Luckily, at this time, we were also in the bank revising our data strategy. And people asked me about the records management topic, and I actually asked them, records management and data disposal needs to be part and parcel of the data strategy. They are a core dimension. And actually, my team should be part of the Chief Data Office, which they all agreed. And I transitioned to the Data Office, which was the right choice, because then I joined the management team that was probably more focused on the process design. And actually, I did really well in the Data Office. I have grown the portfolio over the years. And as you said, I'm the deputy for the Chief Data Officer.
We'll come back to some of the aspects you mentioned more around what does that mean for the business whether it's risk management and the data aspect, which is critical, clearly, in financial services. But before we get there, I'd like to explore a little bit more of an additional personal topic around gender. Have you found that your gender impacted you in your career? And we were briefly talking about it just before the interview. And how did you address that in your own way?
Yeah, as I said to you, I don't think gender impacted me. I think being French probably impacted me more, and the self-doubt about my very strong accent, which I can't get rid of after all of these years. But maybe one thing I can share is not so much being a woman, but being a senior woman. When I joined the Audit Exco or was made MD in audit, I was the only female around the table, and I realized then that I really needed a more senior support network to explore the challenges I was facing them. I could not find it in my team. I was the only one. And also I was a new kid on the block at the Exco, so it was a bit intimidating. That's not really the first port of call for me to ask them. So I actually decided to use my loneliness as a female strong leader in audit to create a female MD network for the UK. I started approaching our only female board member at the time. She was in technology, and asked her if she would be willing to give a talk to the female MDs of the UK, which she was delighted to do. I got the list from HR, invited everyone. And actually, this network of female were really quite interested to continue the journey. I had entitled the first get-together as Stronger Together. And actually, over the years, we've continued that network. We're meeting next month as well, going to a ballet and having a talk. And I would say maybe that's what differentiates me from my male counterpart, is that actually I used the female card quite a lot as excuses to build this network, interview a lot of senior people and get them access to our female MD in the UK. I've also been engaged in many female steering groups for the industry, but also developed gender balance strategy for our firm, coached many female, which I still keep in touch with, even if they've left the bank. And I'm passionate to see them grow. So I would say what differentiates is not so much the way I work, but the way I network, and how it helps me actually to be a female, to have a different kind of network.
And I think that's something I can see across many different minority groups. In the end, ERGs, for example, is a good example of that, right? But building that support network to be able to share similar challenges that other group might not face is quite important. And now I'd like to go back a little bit to your day job. So can you describe to us what you do day in and out and where you spend most of your time on?
Yeah. So if you ask my kids, I'm not sure if they could explain. But to make it simple, what I would say is I design processes for a global and complex bank that in the end improve quality and availability of the data and enable compliance with really a large range of regulatory requirements that are around data, whether it's data storage, data access, retention, management. This in turn enables process optimization, IT platform modernization and rationalization, and as well innovation and cost save. I spend most of my time probably with my team, refining and reviewing their proposals, with my stakeholders to communicate on progress and proposal, and also with our regulators who are really interested in the data space.
Yeah, and clearly the banking space is massively impacted by the regulation BCBS 239 on data aggregation and risk reporting. It's an interesting space from that perspective because what I've observed over the years is not all financial services firms are impacted by such regulation. In fact, it's primarily banks, which has created some distortion from a competitive standpoint. And I remember many years back being at a roundtable of CROs with asset managers, in-house asset managers from large banks, talking about this type of regulation and approach and what it led to from a product market segmentation perspective. And the other pure asset manager looking at them with wide eyes, saying, what are you guys talking about? We are nowhere from a data architecture standpoint. We are not progressing. So for me, it's also an example where the regulation can be a force for good and actually competitive edge as well. And I think we're going to develop that a little bit further as we talk. And here we started touching on the strategic aspect as well of data management, data risk, etc. How do you ensure the board and the executive team stay engaged and on top of that data agenda?
So data maybe it's not the number one, it can be the number one, but it is really at the top of the management board's table at the moment. And it's so high in focus that actually we have quite a lot of our board members attending the steering committee of our biggest data program. We also asked our board member last year to elect their divisional data officer and ensure that they personally choose them and feel confident that they are the right people to give them updates. Our divisional data officer needs to be either a direct report of the board or a direct report of a direct report, quite a senior role. And what they are accountable for is all of the board members have their own portfolio and are accountable for the data delivery. So they need to approve their own data scope and also approve the targets, which they are held accountable, including through the balanced scorecard. We have a few KPIs that are impacting the bonus pool of all of our board members for data. So obviously there is incentive. It's a top topic for the bank. But there's also a structured follow-up through both the steering committee, but also quarterly updates to the board on our data KPIs and overall data progress.
And if I can just build a little bit on that, do you have visibility on what it means strategically and from a business standpoint for them to get that right?
So in the end, what's the incentive, what's the price? And data management should be seen as a key enabler to both IT platform rationalization and modernization, as well as process optimization and associated cost save. So that's the business incentive. You know, if you think about it, records retention, getting it right is a precondition for you to be able to decommission your application and actually rationalize and get rid of your old legacy system and optimize it with new modern technology. And data residency, getting it right is also the key to actually migrating to the cloud and getting all of the optimization opportunities. Similarly, getting data access right is a key to unblocking AI potential. And in overall term, optimizing the data quality is a fundamental cost save for all of the banks. When you think about it, it can reduce massively the finance staff footprints. You don't have to post all of these adjustments because you don't know your data or your data is corrupt, and then you can also optimize it. And then obviously the last prize for the bank and the board is data is in the laser eye of our regulators. So a lot of focus on getting it right. You spoke about BCBS 239. I think our regulators are fed up that after so many years of BCBS 239, they can still see quite a lot of challenges with our data processes. And they think we need to get faster at getting it right.
And I think it's a very good segue to the next question, which is, what are the biggest challenges you face in data management and life cycle of controls associated with data?
I think one of the big challenges is delivering at scale on a massively extended scope. You mentioned BCBS 239. The traditional focus of it was the key risk metrics and ensuring they were fit for purpose. This is not what the regulator expects us to do now. It's not just risk metrics. It's any key processes the bank depends on should go through this strong data management capability. And we actually have massively extended our data scope, whilst in the same time also massively our data standards. And mobilizing the entire organization to really get through it is hard work because for some reason, even though you could think data management should be interesting to any process design, if you think about it, it's about identifying your critical data and making sure you source it from the authorized data source, making sure this authorized data source has reference data that is the golden one to enable you to connect all of your processes, ensuring that you understand with your producer what's the data quality controls, you have monitoring to get it noticed when the quality drops, that you identify your DQ issue. I mean, all of that, you have a risk background, I have an audit background, you could think it's bread and butter, no? Maybe the only one that from an audit background I would not have fully thought about is concept of reference data or sourcing from the authorized source. I'm not sure I would have known by default how to go about this. But bottom line, this is not something that is within the DNA of the organization. and not something that is ready whenever we knock on people's door and ask them, what's your most important data, where do you source it from. There's a lot of dependency, unfortunately, on technology from our process owner, who just leave it to technology to sort it out and don't really have this strong end-to-end process ownership, which is probably one of the challenge of getting faster for us at Deutsche.
I'm not sure it's reassuring, but this is definitely not an isolated case. Where I've observed that across many organizations, and you outline the challenges many other organizations I think are facing as well in a very clear and eloquent way. Feel free not to answer that, but just for the audience, can you just give us an idea of the scale of what we're talking about in terms of volume of data or systems?
So Deutsche, we have 4,500 applications. So that's a pretty big portfolio. A lot of this portfolio we are moving to the cloud as well in parallel. In terms of data scope, that's 1,300 items that we want to control. So could be a specific high-risk model, could be key risk metrics or key risk report. But imagine in like 1,300 of this, it's quite a lot to handle. And yeah, I mean, we are a global bank with all of the division. We also have asset management as well, many countries, a lot of acquisition along the way, so a lot of convoluted IT architecture, which make it harder.
Yeah, so in the end, you take the number you just provided and then you time it by the different dimension you mentioned, and then you end up having billions, trillions of data to look at. That's
yes.
Probably what we're talking about, isn't it?
Yes, indeed. Obviously, for all of these items, some of them are produced from the same processes. They might have the same, what we call critical data element. But in the end, yes, I mean, we're talking beyond the risk and finance. In the end, all of the non-financial risk key metrics are also part of this. So that can touch the HR processes. It's pretty much all of the data of the bank that ends up being in scope.
Yeah, directly or indirectly. And if all the banks and actually financial institutions in general and probably even beyond face this acceleration challenge as you just outlined, what's the recipe to go faster?
We are somehow fortunate, I explained to you, this divisional data officer, really strong role in our organization. I think getting faster starts with clear accountability and clear roles for the leadership of the data agenda. So the divisional data officer roles are critical, and I know some of the banks have not fully established these roles, and that's the key. Also the key to get the management board actively engaged in steering the agenda and having the KPIs that they can understand how they make progress. Something that is bread and butter, but not always easy to get, is to have common standards across the organization, the same data taxonomy to describe the data, centralized and curated reference data that is fundamental and that's at the core of so many process issues, standard data model and quality rules, and to produce the most frequently used data. That's quite key. I would say as well, one thing that is quite fundamental is beyond all of this maybe nitty-gritty governance work, what makes banks go faster as well is when they identify their most fundamental data architecture goals and what amazing look like for them in the next year, the next 2 years. That could be building or improving a central data hub for their strategic data, which benefits from centralized control. Whatever it is, but above and beyond improving the governance of the data and the quality of the data bottom up, in the end, what has the most impact is the big data architecture uplift. So that's for quality. I spend actually quite a lot of my time on the topics that do not get as much board attention, the painful topics of compliance with regulations around residency and access. I would say a key part to success here is to not rely on experts, but codify the rules and make sure that all of these processes to deal with access and residency are rule-based and automated as much as possible. And finally, we talked about it earlier. Data literacy is not yet in the DNA of the organization, or at least not in ours. I would say increasing the baseline level of data literacy, that everyone knows the ABC of what good data practices look like, is probably going to be an enabler to go faster.
Yeah, and I've seen good initiatives in that space with data academy and like structured program depending on the rules that can. It's not a silver bullet, but it helps, to your point, to raise awareness and education. And just to build on everything you just said, so here we're looking a little bit about the regulatory aspect, the structure, the strategy. How do you balance the need for innovation while ensuring, we say, comprehensive data risk and control management?
When I think about innovation for Deutsche, I mean, what springs to mind is our cloud migration program as well as our AI program. Both programs have quite ambitious goals in terms of migration or AI model build-up, and we can come back to that in a minute if you want to. But at the core of them, we have actually established really strong control frameworks. So we've designed our cloud control framework in 2020. And same for AI, it is a quite highly controlled process. What is important for us is to design it and then to optimize it. So a lot of the controls we initially built, which were quite manual, including for residency and access, have now been automated. So it's about understanding the foundations of what needs to be controlled, what are the rules, and then build a metadata strategy to enable for this control to be applied by design in the future.
And you mentioned AI models, so can you just elaborate on that and how widespread they are across your organization?
Yes, so as part of our AI strategy, we've actually identified the top 100 AI model use case for the current phase of our strategy. We think that they will enable us to gain on average 100 million euros per year from 2025. We already have actually 85 AI models in our model inventory, which are in use. They range from documentation scanning to support loan documentation. We also have models that are supporting our wealth managers in terms of their recommendation for their clients in terms of portfolio tools. For those that listen on the line who are in non-financial risk, we also have models for reputational risks that scan client information across 1,000 sources, across more than 40 languages. And we actually have many more in the pipe. We have models that are going to help our technologists with coding, models that are going to support our KYC support in terms of media screening. But what's more important for us at the moment is to really fast-track the development of those models. The goal of our current phase of the data strategy, not only about delivering these 100 top AI model, it's also building the shared services platforms and the automation of the controls that will enable us to go from a time to market of about 1 year to about 3 months, which is our target.
And I actually remember one of your colleagues coming and presenting at the Risk.net conference earlier in June this year on the strategy Deutsche Bank had and the use case sitting behind the use of AI models. Some of it aligned to what you just mentioned and more broadly around driving efficiency and rationalization of the core infrastructure across the bank. Very interesting presentation, and the use case itself really around efficiency and again rationalization was very strong. Now we touch about the technological aspect and technical aspect. What about the culture? You've already mentioned a DNA that is required. How do you foster a culture that embraces innovation and align it to that data culture that is required? Do you have any advice there or any tips?
I think embracing this technology starts with literacy across the organization. So we've actually spent quite a lot of effort in training our technologists. So we've already trained 4,500 technologists in terms of cloud engineering. We are also focusing on the central platforms to ensure that we make it easy to most of the staff. But I would say it really starts with familiarization and more pervasive cloud and AI understanding across the organization. We are currently piloting a Copilot as well, but I would say it's not every one of us at Deutsche Bank that feel cloud or AI savvy. And I was listening to a talk from our CEO with the CEO of Accenture earlier this week, actually, Julie Sweet. And I was quite fascinated. She has a legal background, but actually made the pivot to digital for her company, and heavily invested for both herself as well as her top management team in ensuring that everyone knew the fundamentals of AI and use new technology. She even cited for all of the top management team, they have to spend at least 20 hours per year getting trained. I think it inspired me to do more, and I think probably, whilst we train a lot our technologists, I think we should probably do more still in terms of our non-technologists to make sure it permeates the organization.
Well, the data is actually owned not by technology, but by the people who are using it for their day in and out activities, isn't it? So they need to understand what the technicalities of it and what it practically means without, at least from my perspective, making sure they understand what it means. You can't run a process without data, so
Indeed.
It's in a way that simple. And from a regulatory standpoint, you've already touched on, and we talked a little bit about clearly BC-BES 239 and other aspects, but do you see anything else you'd like to share on implication of regulation in terms of data risk and management?
Yes, so I mean, clearly the data quality agenda is the most dominating regulatory theme. That's really where all of our top regulators are focused on. But outside of this sphere, which is really big, the other two topics that are quite significant for us and in terms of the way we design our processes are the growing regulations around data sovereignty and residency, which are connected to the data privacy regulations. So that's a big theme, and obviously it has a lot of impact around the way we designed our cloud migration, the way we share our data across the globe. I would say that's probably one of the themes of tomorrow. Once we'll be all proficient in having clean data, the focus, I would be surprised if it did not change into the privacy. And that's obviously assuming that we've also solved in the meantime. There's a lot of regulatory focus as well still on cyber security, but that's also assuming we solve for that in parallel. Obviously, as the organizations transition to more AI-driven decision-making, an emerging theme, and we see a lot more regulations coming up, a lot of regulatory interest, not just only from the US. We had deep dive meetings as well with the MAS from Singapore, is the way we design our data processes for AI, and how do we ensure the data we use for them is trusted, and that we have the right level of governance when it comes to the access to the data, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, and I suppose DORA or the EU AI Act will act as accelerator for this type of discussion as well.
Indeed.
Perhaps one last question before we get to a close. How do you envision the future of data management in a sector and potentially beyond?
I envisage that AI model will become more and more central to any decision-making and process automation in banking. And with that, the need for strong data governance framework will grow. The bank will need to ensure that the data that is used by AI models is accurate, unbiased, ethically sourced. And in this context, I foresee that this data literacy we spoke about earlier will really become a fundamental skill for all of our staff across all levels. They will need to understand the strengths of the data that their tools and AI-driven decision-making is using, ensuring that they get it from the right place so that it can be of the best quality. Understand the quality of this data because it will, in the end, have a much bigger impact on the outcome. So that's how I envisage the world of tomorrow. A lot of our processes will be embedded by design. Everyone will know what is their critical data, where maybe we'll have a shopping cart for data, and it's going to be really easy to access the data. I want this data, I have this role, and therefore I have the access enabled for this data. It will be much easier to access the data, but people will be needing to be much savvier around what data they really need and for what purpose and what's the quality they require for that.
Yeah, so in the end, it's about the digitalization journey of the overall industry and more broadly of the economy, isn't it? and the fact that we're really shifting toward data-driven businesses.
Yes, and I think as part of this transition, we need to really be much better in terms of the metadata we need about our data to enable control by design. So I spoke about the residency topic before. If you've never really tagged your data properly, you do not know. First, if you don't even know the rules, which could happen, based on conference I've attended, a lot of our peers are looking at data access or decision one by one, as opposed to having a structural rule books, understanding which data is specifically in scope for enhanced control. But let's assume you know that, but you don't know the legal ownership of your data. Which legal entity does this data belong to, then you do not know what rules apply. And that makes everything incredibly manual because you have to scratch your head every time you make a decision. So I think part of the future is being much smarter about control and understanding what is the metadata we need for all of our data to have automated controls.
And that definitely applies much beyond the remit and the boundaries of financial services. So thank you so much for sharing all of these insights, Marie. I'd like to get now to a close for the discussion and moving to a lighter touch. What superpower do you wish you had?
I like traveling, so the one I wish I had was the ability to teleport myself anywhere in the world, carbon-free, of course, and ideally with my loved one. I unfortunately did not have the chance of working in Asia, but I wish, today it's raining, snowing in London. I wish I could snap of a finger, find myself in Bali. It's never going to happen, but we can always dream.
Yeah, you're not the first one who had that dream, by the way. And what's your favorite book?
I've got a few, but one I really liked was The Pillars of Earth from Ken Follett. So it's about building cathedral in the 11th century. And the descriptions are so rich. You really feel when you read the book, you're with them like 1,000 years ago. So I thought it was really a good book.
And what is the one tool you always have with you?
I'm going to show it to you later. That's a technique I developed during COVID. I have what I call my post-it book, So I have a tiny little book I bring everywhere. And just to keep my head free of all of the information I try to keep. I've got a really good memory, but still trying to remember everything is hard. So what I have in my post-it book is I actually have a page for all of my directs, all of my key stakeholders, all of my key peers on the things I need to speak to them about next time I meet with them or I need to follow up. So not technology heavy, but I must say, speaking about technology, I start to use more and more ChatGPT, on my phone. It's quite fascinating, like the level of advice you can get there.
And if people want to find more about you, where can they learn more about you?
Well, I'm a strong user of LinkedIn. So I spoke to you about my passion for gender balance strategy. So you can find there an article I wrote after I did research across financial and non-financial services firm around what makes a difference in gender balance in audit, the type of conference I present to. So that's on LinkedIn.
And final question, any final advice for emerging risk leaders and people who want to make a career in risk data audit?
I would say wherever you start, don't doubt yourself. You are amazing. So ensure you build your support network and make your plan for impact. Plan for impact for me is one of my preferred career tips. And that starts with understanding what amazing looks like for you in the next year in your role or for your next career goal. If you want to be promoted, if you have a role in mind, what's the roadmap to get there, do deep thinking. It's almost Christmas, so you're closing the year. Focus on getting your successes this year, but do deep thinking at Christmas and think about what does amazing look like for next year and really plan for this quarterly drop of impact. Don't have goals that give you the buzz at the end of the year. It's not going to help you with your promotion. You need to create the buzz for you and your team, each quarter. So what is it you're going to present at the next management meeting? What is it you're going to present at the next council meeting or whatever it is that you can showcase your work?
Well, Marie, thank you so much for your time today. It was a treat. We covered a lot of ground, so I think people will have learned a lot about probably a bit of audit, but definitely in the data space and what it means for a large financial institution. And thank you so much for your tips, especially the Post-it one is definitely one I'm going to take away for myself.
I'm going to show you my book.
I want to see it after once we are done here. So thank you so much.
It was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
And speak to you soon.
Thank you.
As we conclude this fascinating conversation with Marie Lauri, I am struck by her profound insights into the evolving challenges of data governance, the importance of fostering innovation through robust controls, and her dedication to building a culture of literacy and inclusion. Marie's journey, from microfinance to leading transformative data initiatives at Deutsche Bank, is a powerful example of resilience, adaptability, and the impact of strategic thinking. So a heartfelt thank you to Marie for sharing her expertise and experiences with us today on RiskMasters. Her story underscores the value of aligning innovation with governance, investing in people, and maintaining a clear vision for impact in today's complex financial landscape. To dive deeper into today's episode and access show notes, transcript, and more, please visit my website avitium.com. And remember, keep pushing boundaries, keep making an impact, and never shy away from becoming the master of your own destiny. Until the next time.
Thank you for joining us on RiskMasters today. If you're ready to master risk and unleash your full potential, here's how you can take the next steps. First, head over to julianhay.com to discover even more valuable insights from our RiskMasters. We've got a treasure trove of knowledge waiting for you. Second, don't miss out on future episodes. Hit that subscribe button on your favorite podcasting platform. Stay tuned for fascinating discussions on risk management. And third, if you found today's episode valuable, please share it on social media. Help others discover the world of RiskMasters and embark on their journey of risk mastery. Remember, success favors the bold. See you on the next episode of RiskMasters.